Hello and welcome back to A Drunk History of Middle-earth. This is a show where we take the legendarium created by J.R.R. Tolkien and have a good, simple, wholesome chat about it. Sometimes it's a drunk person, me, trying to explain stories or events, and sometimes it's breaking down the stories and concepts as if we're talking to a drunk person. I'm Chris, I'm an avid Tolkien nerd, I'm still learning and realising how much I actually don't know. And joining me is your co-host and my lovely wife Rebecca. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Rebecca, a complete novice to all things Tolkien and nerdy in general. Although now I've watched all 3 films, extended editions, and can now confirm that I have been converted to the religion headed by L. Ron Tubbard.
Long may he live. Right.
Sultan.
That's the intro sorted. Let's get into today's episode. Alright. Hello, Becca. Happy Friday.
Whoop whoop.
Yeah, it's Friday. I mean, I work 4-day weeks, so like Thursday is my Friday, but Friday. How's your week been?
It's been fantastic. I've had a really great week, and I mean, work's been absolutely horrendous, diabolical, but everything else been great, so I take that as a win.
Good. All right. Yeah. Good. Friday, I've got our wee drinks. We sipperoos. I've got lager. I've found that lager is very much the speed for this podcast. Whiskey is a good idea, but I don't want to be as drunk as we were the first episode. That was bad.
Well, I've just worked out that it's exactly 4 weeks since I drank, and this is the first time that I'm drinking again. That first podcast nearly made me go sober for the rest of my life.
Oh well.
So I'm having this one can, and we'll see where it goes.
But it is. It's been a journey. We were just saying it's getting easier to record these now, isn't it? Now that we kind of like know the flow. The first episode was nerve wracking a little bit. I didn't know what to say, despite the fact I'm an absolute gobshite. And it's just gotten easier from then on, which is good. But the main event, while we're all here, is we watched part 2 of The Two Towers last night. Disc 2 of The Two Towers, the second film
of The Two Towers.
The second, yeah. It's easy to think of it as watching like 6 films because the books are there's 6 books within the Lord of the Rings. Even though everyone thinks like Fellowship, Two Towers, Return, it's actually 2 books in each of those. Which I think Tolkien wrote Middle-earth, the whole legendarium, with the idea that like sweaty nerds were going to argue over it in future and get really pedantic. But more importantly, what were your impressions on watching that? You seem quite positive, right?
Yeah, it's been my favourite one so far. I liked all the action in the film, loved the characters and their progression, especially the Ents.
Yeah, the Ents. You seem quite taken with the Ents, didn't you?
Yeah, and since I've watched it, I now can't drive past groups of trees without imagining that they're actually alive. So I'm just going to be that nutcase that's walking around talking to trees, but that doesn't make any change, really.
That's a pretty bad look considering we live like pretty much in the countryside, so there's trees everywhere we go.
Yeah, like I just feel like that's quite a comforting thing to imagine that the trees are alive.
Ents, yes. Huorns would fucking terrify me.
The ones that moved towards the end.
The ones that swallowed the Uruk-hai.
Oh no, that wouldn't faze me. Because I'd be really nice to the trees. So they would protect me.
Yeah, well, you seem pretty confident. So let's go to a forest, and I'll leave you in the middle of it and see what happens.
I'd be fine, mate.
They respected me for it. But yeah, you like the Ents. But no, we'll get to it. Should we have a quick recap? Well, not a quick recap, because the majority of this podcast is us talking about what happens in the film and then your thoughts and what's going on behind the films. One thing I did notice is there's a lot of... I don't know whether I noticed it more in The Two Towers than Fellowship, or I don't know whether it was just present, but there's a lot of like cinematography shorthand that Peter Jackson's used. So instead of having to explain things, he's used like visual
representation.
He's kind of like show, don't tell, which is pretty good and it saves a lot of time. But the purist in me is just thinking, oh, well, it didn't happen like that. And I know why
Yeah.
you've changed it, but it didn't happen like that in the books.
As well, it leaves a lot of interpretation for someone who hasn't read the book. So there was elements in that film that I was like itching to be like, what does that even mean? What does that mean? Is this a dream? Is this real? Is this a flashback?
Yeah. What's getting interesting as well for your journey into Middle Earth is I've been reading the Silmarillion to you on a night.
Yes.
You've been falling asleep to it, to be fair, but it's been quite nice when I was reading the chapter on the Third Age, and you'd recognised a couple of the names.
Yeah.
Which was pretty good. So it's interesting.
It's sinking in slowly.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting to see because unheeded sent me a picture of a worm the other day and said I could just go all Gollum on this because you were hungry, which was completely unprompted.
I did drop my food.
Yeah.
On the floor of the office.
Yeah. Well.
And then my card wouldn't work at the shop.
Yeah. Well, if you were Gollum, you wouldn't have dropped it because he's got amazing strength.
No, because the fish that he catches always seem to like jump out of his hands.
Yeah, but then he beat it to death. It was like juicy,
yeah, but I can't.
And just batting it off the rock.
I can't beat up mushroom soup, at least when it's not in the can. Like if it was in a can, I could beat it up, but not free.
That sounds like the excuses of a loser.
Whatever.
That's what that sounds like. But no, it's pretty cool. So we're not even at the end of the trilogy, but because we're doing this week on week and we're talking about it between recordings, obviously, and when we're watching it, you are coming on quite a lot, which is pretty cool. It's been nice. It's been nice to see your journey.
I'm not going to get an exam at the end of this, am
I? Like I said last week, you thought I was joking. The trilogy is just a primer. That's these 6 episodes for the main films. That's just your introduction. That's boot camp.
So do I get to watch The Hobbit next?
We might do the Hobbit films if you're still into this. If not, I'll just find another host and continue without you.
Rude.
Can't stop this train, baby. But no, I was thinking once we've done the main trilogy, we might do a couple of bridging episodes. Then maybe we'll do The Hobbit. But eventually we will get to the point where we've got no more films to watch. So we might start doing it topic by topic, which will allow us to really dig deep. And that'll be interesting to see how much your learning speeds up when we're doing that.
I'll be talking Elvish in no time.
Yeah, well, at that point, and I'll say speak Elvish, and you'll say, well, actually, Chris, there's more than one Elvish language. There's Sindarin, and there's Noldor, or there's Quenya, and there's Sindarin. I only know there's Quenya, and Sindarin because of that joke of Quenya feel these nuts. That's the one we
You're such a disgusting nerd.
I am. It's vile. Anyway, on with the main show. We open up, and there's a lot more comedy, I think, in this part of it as well, because we open up with the refugees on the way home. That's not the funny bit, the refugees. The funny bit is Eowyn and Gimli talking about dwarf women.
Yeah.
And Gimli saying that they're indistinguishable from men, which I wanted to point out that dwarf women have beards. Shout out to the Rings of Power, not giving Disa a beard. Absolute bastards, unforgivable. It's a good job Disa is actually a nice, it's a pretty decent character without the beard. But dwarf women should have beards. And I think it's Tolkien, but it is a general fantasy trope if it's not Tolkien, that dwarf gender is considered quite a private thing. Just like they have outer names, which they show to people outside of the race. So Thorin, Oakenshield, Gimli, Gloin, Boriori, Nori, etc. Those are their outer names. Those are the names that they give to people who aren't dwarfs. And your inner name is considered quite personal and private. And with dwarfs, gender is considered quite personal and private.
So people who are acquaintances would know me as Rebecca, and then our friends and you would know me as Becca.
Sugar tits. But yeah, it's like that. In fact,
and then you would know that I was a woman, whereas our friends and the acquaintances wouldn't know what gender I was, and that wouldn't be a thing. Kind of.
I'll tell you what is a good example. So we've got a friend called Sandy who is half Thai, right?
Mm.
And a lot of Thai people have a Western name, like a Falang name.
Yeah, I remember Sandy saying.
Yeah, so I remember Sandy's. I think it's Sandy's sister's Thai name means something like social. Her a Western name is like chosen to mean like social butterfly or something, and then they have like a Thai name as well. So it's like you have so if you draw a parallel between like some Asian cultures and Middle Earth, is that you have the name that you show to everybody who is of your culture. And then, because people might not understand it, you have a name. You have a name like you.
Ace.
Exactly. I was just about to mention we have Ace, who his real name is something. He said his real name is too hard to pronounce. Allegedly, we've had this Mandela moment where we all can't remember why he didn't give his first name properly when we first started playing D&D together. But you have a different recollection of it to me. And Becca, who I also played D&D with, different Becca, and Elise also had, like, we all remember it slightly differently. But Ace's name isn't Ace, obviously. It's something equivalent to like Sanch, is what some people call him, right? So he has that name that because he's of he's of a different culture. I can't remember off the top of my head because we play D&D. We don't fucking tend to talk about real world stuff that often. But anyway, he's of some like other. Like ethnicity, even though obviously he's fully British, but like he still has that cultural heritage where he's got that name. But then to the online world, he presents himself as Ace. So it's the same with dwarves,
which is a pretty cool name.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, but then it becomes less cool when you find out that it's because of some fucking Pokemon shit. Anyway, enough of that. I feel like we talk about the D&D group every week. Like they don't even listen to this podcast.
Yeah, but they seem like a big part of our lives because I've never even spoke to them or met them.
Yeah.
But they've been in our lives longer than our child, so...
I think it's just because I have a routine with them. And that starts to count for a lot at our age when you've got so much stuff going on that if you make regular time for people, that almost unwillingly they've become my friends.
Yeah.
But so with the name thing, which we could talk about cultures and naming conventions for years, especially within Tolkien because he was a philologist. He studied languages and you know their writings and all that.
Let's say that again.
A philologist. That's exactly what he was. But with dwarfs, the added one is that gender's also a part of that as well. So it would be like me not finding out you were a woman till after we were already dating. Which, like, if you know, because dwarves, like, you're a crafter first, or you're a blacksmith first, and you're a man or a woman second. So yeah, it's fascinating. Which I also think is really sweet because it means that sexuality is like it's obviously not a thing unless you're going for procreation. Like so, yeah. Anyway, we won't talk too much more about that because I could go on forever about my next character. I've already told you is a dwarf who's got like he's a bloke and he has a husband who's died. And they didn't find out they were both blokes until after they were married anyway. Like, because that's just a level of intimacy. So yeah, it's amazing that gender is a private matter amongst dwarves. I've just got, it's a bit campy and fun this first bit. We've got that Eowyn's a really bad cook. But then straight away, dropping the law bombs, we find out that Aragorn is 87. And he marched with King Thengel, who is Theoden's dad, when Theoden was a kid. So what? Well, I know I said that I don't want to be asking you all the time, like, what were your thoughts on this? But when Eowyn mentioned, she was going like, you would have to be 60. 70? Surely not 80. And he's like, no, I'm 87. Like, did you have any... Because I'd already explained to you about the Númenóreans being longer lived.
Yeah, I mean, he looks good for his age, but I didn't think much of it, to be honest, because I already was aware that age is completely different to human age, and because of Bilbo.
Oh, right, okay. So
and like hobbits, I kind of compare every other race to hobbits, and I'm like, oh, right, they deteriorate more slowly, or so. It's a big thing in my mind that I know that they don't have a normal human lifespan. That's not weird to me, so.
Okay, well, yeah,
I don't know why. Maybe it's just because we have a dog.
Well, yeah, true. You do see people like things aging at different rates. Talking about that, like again, nothing has made me more aware of the passage of time than watching our child grow. It's crazy.
I feel like we are gonna just blink and we'll be like ancient, decrepit, grey.
Yeah, and unlike Númenóreans, we can't choose when we die. They can.
How do they do that?
It's part of. So, do you remember last week me explaining that the Edain were the ancestors? Like they were the first the first men.
Yeah.
They were called the Edain. And at the end of the First Age, the Edain who helped the elves against Morgoth were rewarded for that by Eru or by, I think it might have been Manwë on behalf of Eru. And Numenor was raised out of the sea. And Numenor was given to the Edain who helped them, and they became the Numenorians, right? So the men who helped the elves against Morgoth were rewarded for it. They were also blessed by the Valar, or Eru himself, actually. But the Numenorians became, like, the best among men. So they were blessed with longer life than most normal men. But they weren't immortal. They still... So do you remember me saying a few weeks ago that in the afterlife, that men and hobbits, it's considered the gift of Iluvatar, that when they die, they are taken beyond the rings of the world and they get a true death. So Numenorians still get that, but they also become much longer lived. So it's not unusual at the height of Numenor to live to like 200, 300 years.
Right, okay.
But even again, and we come back to that concept we revisit every week now, of that this is a world in decline. So even though at their height of Numenor they could live 200, 300 years, something along those lines, Aragorn still isn't as long-lived as Numenorians were at their height, but he is still a lot longer lived than regular men.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's part of that bloodline again, that the blood of Numenor. So in the books, Aragorn's about 7 feet tall. Obviously, Viggo Mortensen isn't that. But Numenorians, they're tall, they're noble, they're good looking. Well, most of them are just handsome devils. But that's because it's part of that blessing that they helped the elves and they were rewarded.
Like the chosen ones.
Yeah, pretty much. The fall of Numenor itself is it's a horrible story. That even though they were long lived, Sauron, surprise, surprise, sneaking around in the background, Sauron stoked their fears and their jealousy and was kind of whispering in I can't remember his name.
Are you talking Ent?
No. So every king of Numenor has the prefix of Ar, like AR. It's like Ar-Pharazôn, I think, was the evil, quote unquote evil king of Numenor who Sauron corrupted by saying basically, yeah, you're long lived, but why aren't you immortal? Don't you want to be immortal? It's the Valar that are keeping it from you. So he tried to convince the Numenorians to attack Aman, which is the continent where Valinor is. And Eru raised up the sea itself and swallowed Numenor. So they were called the Black Numenorians. They were the evil ones. So the downfall of Numenor, again, was a horrible thing. But so the Numenorians are blessed bloodlines. It's just mentioned quickly, but Aragorn marched with King Thengel when he was a lot younger. And what Aragorn was doing at that time was he was going about accomplishing great deeds. And he went by he didn't want to, his identity has had to be hidden his whole life. He doesn't reveal himself as Aragorn, son of Arathorn, until around this time. So during that time when he was marching in Rohan and Gondor, fighting for the Lord, he was called Thorongil, which was the name he took at that time. And he actually visited Gondor at the time, and he marched. So there's a character you'll meet in the next film called Denethor. Well, you've already met him. Do you know the dickhead? Faramir's dad. The one who's... do you know when you have that flashback to Osgiliath, and Boromir and Faramir have taken back the city?
Yeah,
and he turns up, he's an absolute
He looks really like he's got one of those really familiar faces.
Yeah.
Of all evil fathers.
Yeah. His father, Ecthelion, was the steward of Gondor at the time, and Thorongil or / Aragorn marched to war on the side of Gondor, and Ecthelion loved Thorongil even more so than his son Denethor. So you can kind of start to understand that Denethor grew up being a bitter bastard because his dad loved someone else above him,
and makes the same mistake with his own children.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Why are abusers abuse?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think Ecthelion was an abuser. He loved Thorongil, because Ecthelion, his whole goal was to make Gondor as strong as possible. So he encouraged everybody, even if you're not from Gondor, come and fight for us. Yeah,
but if you show more appreciation for someone than your own son, if they're loyal as well, if they've given you a proper reason.
It's coming back to that thing of that in Lord of the Rings, there's not many out and out, purely, properly evil, unredeemable people. There's a lot of tragic figures.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like so Denethor, for example, has his downfalls, and he's been corrupted, and he's been jealous and what have you. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that Aragorn, as at this point, people know of stories of him, but as Thorongil and not Aragorn. But then we go to dreams of Arwen and Aragorn chilling in Rivendell. Well, I was confused at this as well. Like, is it a dream or is it a flashback? Because when he's saying like, "Oh, this is a dream," she says like, "It's a good dream," and kisses him. Then the next bit is,
it's like, I knew this was my time, or this, I know this is the time.
Yeah, and like they're talking about like his destiny is becoming like King of Gondor and stuff like that. But I thought it was I thought it was a dream. Until then, he's walking through Rivendell like, in the very next bit, and you see one of the hobbits in the background getting Bill the Pony ready. So, like, it's obviously just before they left Rivendell, right? Just before they left for the Mines of Moria. So it's obviously a flashback. But we then see Elrond and Aragorn discussing what it means for Arwen to stay. Because if Arwen stays in Middle-earth, she will decline and fade away.
That was really a really touching moment for me.
Well, I've got it here. What would you do in Arwen's position? Because so Elrond wants Arwen to leave. Aragorn loves Arwen so much he doesn't want her to stay and die. He wants her to go and live forever in Aman, the continent, not Aman, with Valinor. But like, I've got like, what would you do in Arwen's situation?
I would stay. I'd stay for you.
Oh. But
I don't know whether it was because I was in a really emotional state watching it. No, I just thought I would stay. Because if she leaves, then, yeah, she's got a long life, but a long life of wondering what if, and it's like almost like being a widow. She would still be a widow, but it would be never ending. It would get easier through time, but it would still be there. Like, how do widows move on?
Yeah.
And do they ever move on?
Yeah, it'd be like your grief.
There's too much unknown within the elvish.
Yeah, your grief would last
afterlife.
Forever. So
then there is, like, at least as a human, and this goes for real life, you know that you're born and one day you're going to die.
Yeah. And what if that was gone?
We're all dying.
Yeah. What if your grief would last until the end of time?
Yeah, I couldn't. Nah, I'm all right, thanks. I
But
couldn't think of anything worse.
But Elrond says as well, like, let her bear her love away for you, and it would remain undiminished. And you know, so
but is that potentially because elves are told that this is a fantastic, great place? Because Elrond doesn't know that.
Well, no, there are different types of elves, right?
How do they know that it's so great on the other side, though?
Because there are elves who have
come back.
No, there are elves who have been to Valinor or are from Valinor. There are those elves that went to go to Valinor or Aman and then stopped on their journey. And then there are elves who've never been to Valinor. The elves who went and perhaps come back and are ready to go again, they are known as the elves who've seen the light of the trees. The elves who went and then stopped on their journey are called the Grey Elves. And the elves who've never wanted to go or never saw the light of the tree are called the Dark Elves. I don't think Elrond has been to Valinor because his brother, Elros, was the first king of Númenor, and he's known as half-elven, so he was given the choice of whether to be an elf or not. However, elves that he does know, Galadriel, who is his mother-in-law, and Círdan the Shipwright. Ooh, actually, I don't know if Círdan... I think Círdan the Shipwright has been to Valinor. I'm not sure. Galadriel definitely has, because she left to follow her uncle Fëanor back to Middle-earth. So, while Elrond might not have been himself, and Elrond's wife at this point is already in Valinor, by the way. She's already left for it.
Why did she leave?
She was attacked by orcs one day when she was on a journey, and it says that they tormented her, and I don't know whether that's a polite way of saying, like...
She went nuts.
Well, no, I was thinking more like there's some interpretation that she was raped by orcs, but basically there was some lasting damage to her that couldn't be healed in Middle-earth. Like, physically she was fine, but she bore the wound to her soul, and she couldn't deal with it. And so for that, she left for Valinor. So she's already went. So Elrond's wife is already in Valinor.
Well, I can understand him wanting to push his daughter to go there.
Yeah. But so while Elrond might not have been himself, his wife's already there, and Galadriel has been there. So he's got first-hand account, and also in the books, Glorfindel, Joe, the badass one who got reincarnated.
Yeah.
He's at Rivendell. Glorfindel's been
so he's
Valinor.
been spreading the good news.
It's just there are people who have seen the light of the trees who know Valinor, who have been there. Like they are there. So he will know what it's like, and he'll feel the call of it. So yeah, thinking the same as well. Like in my position, I'd stay.
Oh,
I would. I definitely would.
Is that because I said it though?
No, it's something that I was thinking about while I was watching it, and it's just like it's that thing of like I'd rather burn twice as bright for half as long.
Yeah. Like
what's like
I just do not understand why you would want to live forever.
Oh, I'd love to live forever, but I'd love to not at the expense of you. Do you know what I mean? Like not without you, because it'd get really boring. So, I know. #romantic moment.
It is Valentine's this week, so
well, it has been. I'm looking forward to Pancake Day. I don't give a fuck about Valentine's Day. But Arwen does, spoiler alert, does stay behind, and Aragorn dies.
Does she become like a grey elf because she started walking and then stops?
No, but what happens is Aragorn eventually lays down and gives up his life because as a Númenórean, one of the gifts they can do is they choose when they die. So Aragorn eventually gets weary of the world and he lays down and he dies, and Arwen weeps for him, and she asks him to stay, and he says, "What would you have me do? Still, like I can lay down now while I've still got the strength to do it, or you could wait until I don't know myself and I'd fall off my chair. You like remember me in strength." So Aragorn lays down, he gives up his life, and he hands over the kingdom to his son because they have a son together at the end of all this.
Spoiler.
Yeah. But then Arwen goes to Lothlórien and dwells there. But Lothlórien's abandoned by this point because all the elves have left. All the elves from Lórien leave Middle-earth. And she dwells there alone for a few years before eventually she lays down on the Cairn Amroth, which is the big hill in Lothlórien, and she gives up her life as well, and that's where she ends up buried. So it's at the end it's sad, it's heartbreaking. It's a couple who've been together for many years. She loses her husband, and she remains as long as she can in grief, and then she lays down and gives up her life as well. But we'll have a bit of a key change because then some fucking wargs attack the company. Yeah,
which I loved. I'd love a warg.
A demonic... Yeah, I said this to you yesterday. A demonic wolf.
Yeah, they look so cute.
They look like hyenas on roids.
Yeah, and I don't think they'd be as high maintenance as our own dog, so I feel like at the moment a warg seems like a better choice.
There is some interpretations that say that wargs are actually inhabited by evil spirits. Because they're
I feel like deep down they're not bad doggies.
Well, they are, because it's evil spirits, so...
No. I feel like, they've got riders. They're not going to just do that on their own accord. They're an animal. It's like those big elephant things.
Oh, the Olifants.
Yeah.
Or the Mumakil.
They're getting ridden. Doesn't mean that they're bad.
Yeah, true, I guess. I don't agree with you, but whatevs. Theoden orders Éowyn to lead the refugees to Helm's Deep, which you can see that, she is getting pissed by that. So in the books, it's pretty much the same. It's always like, Éowyn, go and do this, go and take the women and children. She's like, I want to fight.
That's the female role, especially in Tolkien's era. A female was to obey.
Well, we see that with Éowyn, that doesn't quite ring true eventually because, spoiler alert, there's a character called Dernhelm in the books. It's Éowyn.
But that highlights how progressive Tolkien's view of women was.
Oh yeah, he loved his wife.
Strong women.
I think on his wife's tombstone is written that "You are my Luthien" or something, the Luthien to my Beren or something like that. So he absolutely loved his wife. So Éowyn is a fantastically strong character. She's great. She could you see her shine more in Return of the King as well. But the battle I thought was pretty good. some funny moments,
So,
like Gimli getting trapped under the wire. But you also see that Legolas and Gimli, I don't know whether this is the beginning of it, but it's their competition about counting kills.
yeah.
Which carries on, you see, through the Battle of Helm's Deep. And then Gimli gets trapped under a warg, which, honest to God, that is exactly... Do you know when like, he's going to lift up and he's like, oh, and then just gives up?
Yeah.
And then another one climbs on. That's exactly what it feels like to have a kid or a dog fall asleep on you. And you're just trapped under them and you need to move and you just don't know what to do.
But then it becomes a kid and a dog at the same time, doesn't it? Because then he gets a second
that does happen.
warg on top of him.
Yeah, yeah. There has been times
An alive one and then a dead one.
There has been times where the kid and the dog have been asleep on me and I've been like, I need a pee so badly. But it's called pet paralysis, but I don't know what it's called with kids. I'm
assuming kid paralysis.
No, that's a different Great Ormond Street Hospital thing.
Oh, grim.
So anyway. But then Aragorn ends up over the cliff, leading everyone to think he's dead as a battle ends. Like,
what does he get attached by? That's what I'm curious.
Oh, he gets trapped in the warg saddle, but that doesn't happen in the books. Again, it's one of these, like I said,
theatric.
It's the narrative device.
Keep the film moving.
Yeah, it's just to give it some drama, just to have a bit of an impact because it's just one of those things. But going back to elves as well, I didn't know where else to put this in my notes, so I just want to put this out there. Tolkien himself has written about elf sex and that, but wait, I just want to put it out there that this is also one of the reasons why humans and elves don't really mix very well, is that elf sex is so intense that mortals can't really handle it. So there's a book called Nature of Middle-earth, and the quote is, "But the fact of procreation not being one of growth until the union of the seed and being under full control of the will does not take long, though it is longer and of more intense delight in elves than in men, too intense to be long endured."
All I'm hearing and thinking about right now is Twilight.
Oh,
isn't it?
No, that's... Not even on the same level.
It is because that's the whole concept of, like, the end when she's... Well, the beginning in terms of the sexy time, but then in the end with carrying the child.
No, this is it's more like it's just that
I know the
it's
people
that elf spirits are so strong that the birthing of a child can kill you. Like with Feanor, Feanor, who was perhaps called the greatest of all the children of Ilúvatar, his Fea or his soul was so strong that his mum died. It was an elf. She died pretty much from giving birth to him. But I just wanted to mention it that elf sex is so intense that mortals can't handle it. So I'm just putting that.
Yeah, it's ringing as vampire sex, really.
Right, don't compare them. They're not the same. Moving on, Éowyn is sad that Aragorn's went over and she finds out she wants that Aragussi. He's not into it. He's obviously not into it.
That was so cringe.
What? Do you not like me saying Aragussi?
It sounds awful. My vagina just dried up.
Well, you're not getting any Aragussi, so it's fine. We see Saruman showing Grima Wormtongue what amounts to gunpowder. And then Grima, it's weird this, but I think in the book, Grima's pretty much like, once he gets there, he's kept inside the tower. He's not allowed anywhere else or to do anything. Because he's saying like, oh, you need an army of at least 10,000 to take Helm's Deep. And then what do you know? Saruman leads him out onto a balcony and there's an army of about 10,000 Uruk-hai, which he unleashes to march towards Helm's Deep. And the thing I didn't like about this part of the film, and I don't think I noticed it in the first part of the Two Towers, is there are so many scenes that only last a few seconds that flick between the perspectives so much that, like, when you make a note, it's really fucking aggravating. Because, like, I go to write a note about, like, Frodo, and then by the time I finish the sentence, they're back onto... It happens during the Battle of Helm's Deep a lot. There's, like, you'll have the battle, and then all of a sudden, there's a couple of seconds with Frodo, and then you're back to the battle, and you're like, what the fuck, man? Just fucking choose a narrative thread. But because after Saruman, we see Merry and Pippin and Treebeard discussing Saruman. Treebeard is lamenting that Saruman used to care about the trees, but now he only cares about industry, which goes back to what I've mentioned before about the evils of industry. And this is me reaching, and it's just how my imagination works, but they see the Uruk-hai marching. Do you know when you see them going across the plain, and it looks like a river?
Yeah.
Now, what that got me thinking of is there's a war in the First Age called Dagor Bragollach, which is the Battle of Sudden Flame. So there's these really these really super high mountains called Tharangodrim in Beleriand before it was sank, and Morgoth was around there, and there is a place called Dorthonion, which is an elvish like stronghold to basically they lay siege to. I think it's where Angband is, which is one of Morgoth's fortresses, and they lay siege to that for years and years and years, and the elves build a city around it to keep watching him. And it's called the Battle of Sudden Flame because Morgoth flooded a plain outside of Dorthonion with fire and attacked Dorthonion. And he unleashed Glaurung, which is one of the first dragon, and the Balrogs to attack. And just them, it was just the way the Uruk-hai were like snaking over the plain that made me think like maybe that must have been what it looked like at Dagor Bragollach, watching the lava come towards you across the plain, because the idea was he released the lava and like a noxious fume went into the air. That's what Morgoth used to attack, and loads of people were able to escape and stuff. And so it's just one of the huge battles from the first age. It was just that image that was in my head. Then we see Elrond and Arwen discussing that if Arwen stays, she'll eventually decline and die, which we've already discussed. She does, unfortunately.
And I mean, he's very triggering. Like, he's really putting it on thick at this point, isn't he?
Well,
like, to cause her to shed a tear. He's laying it on thick. Like, this is your last chance. Well, it's coming down the grain now.
The thing is, because in the lives of elves, which are measured in centuries, it is, yeah. But this is a very difficult choice with Elrond here, because on previous rewatches, never had an issue with it. It's like, it's all for love. As a father, I can completely understand Elrond.
Yeah, like I understand, especially with a mum being over there, because obviously whatever a mum went through previously was so horrific that the only way she could exist was to go over there. So she's had to, either the decision's been made for her, or she's had to decide to leave her own child. It's
just, so like, as a father I can understand Elrond, but as a husband I can understand Arwen. But talking about bearing away grief for all time, I think her mum's called Kellyanne. But Kellyanne and Elrond, they'll bear that grief for all time as well, knowing that Arwen will eventually die, and that they'll have to wait until the literal end of the world to see her again. Till Dagor Dagorath, which is, like the end times battle. They'll have to wait those long years to perhaps see her again. And it's not even 100% concrete that Dagor Dagorath is like a canon event, so they might be facing eternity grieving for the loss of their daughter. And it's just something I've never appreciated before. But we get
and she would never have the concept of that until she had her own child.
No, exactly. But then we have the beautiful procession of Arwen and the others leaving Imladris. And then which is weird, right? We then get like a mid-film recap of what Sauron's up to from Galadriel, where her and Elrond are talking, like, telepathically. And I don't know what the fuck this was.
It was a weird placement.
It felt like I was watching like a previously on Lord of the Rings type thing. And I was like, is this for anyone who's not paying attention? I couldn't understand what it was for. But yeah, then we finally see Frodo and Sam for the first time, I think. Faramir gets a recap of what's going on in Gondor. Like, Sauron's turning to face you. They're going to attack Osgiliath. Saruman might approach us from the west, I think, on the map.
You need to decide whether you're going to help or not.
Yeah, so it's just some quick tactics. But it's basically that if Saruman's not stopped, if the Battle of Helm's Deep fails, then Gondor's going to be skewered from both sides by Mordor and Isengard. But then he speaks with Sam and Frodo, asking what they're up to. And I think a great line in the film is he says to Sam, he goes, "Your bodyguard?" He goes, "He's Gardener." Which is just peak Sean Astin. Frodo learns that Boromir is dead and the Great Horn is broken, found washed up on a riverbank, and
we have the scene where Boromir's body He's floating past in a boat.
Yeah, and he said, I know it in my own heart. So he hasn't seen the body, so I think this was a dream.
Yeah, well, that's what confused me. That was a point where I said to you, is this a dream or is this real?
Yeah, is this real life or is this just fantasy?
Yeah.
Caught in a landslide.
No escape from reality.
Yeah, then we have a great flashback to the victory at Osgiliath. And this, again, shout out to Boromir and Sean Bean. We see Boromir was really a great man. He was a great captain of Gondor. Like, you see him rally the troops with a victory speech. You see how much him and Faramir love each other. And then fucking Denethor shows up. What a wanker.
Yeah, it's like nothing's good enough.
Yeah.
Like, let him bask a little bit.
He's such a dick. There's a worse part coming that I won't spoil for you in Return of the King with Faramir and Denethor, but I just want all the blokes out there and women as well who have a parent who was never satisfied with anything you did, that I'm proud of you. That what you do is enough. It's okay. But big shout out to all the nerds who, when I'm going to point out that plate armour, whilst it looks beautiful, isn't in the books. The closest you come is scale mail, which is worn by the Easterlings.
Oh.
No. Chainmail is very common, but I think
the elves have some weird sort of scaly type in this film.
They might do, but it ain't what Tolkien wrote. Again, I do, but then again, you can't ignore how good it is because the prop department for the Lord of the Rings film is phenomenal. Like, there's Royal Armouries in Leeds that's got like the weapons and that's amazing.
On another vein, you know how we were talking about Doctor Who last week?
Yeah.
Tonight, I just saw on Instagram that the National Museum of Scotland are having a Doctor Who exhibition.
Ooh, we should go. That's pretty cool.
Anyway.
Moving
swiftly on.
Yeah, there was like 1.5 miles of chainmail made by hand for these films. Because, so I don't know if you know this, but it is pretty common knowledge. But did you know that the films were shot back to back to back? They were all shot at once, like all 3 films.
But you would think that from the scenes that we keep seeing, the sort of mountain ranges and all that.
Yeah, it was a very big undertaking to do the films. But yeah, like the prop department for the movies, it's visually stunning. It's phenomenal. But yeah, just in the writings, plate armour didn't exist. Moving on, Denethor says that a meeting's be called because of the ring and that Boromir needs to go to Rivendell. I do just want to point out a big difference here. In the books, it's more along the lines that everyone just happened to be at Rivendell at that time. So Boromir or Faramir...
It wasn't calculated by everyone.
No. It was Boromir or Faramir had a dream saying that something about Isildur's heir would be found in Rivendell, he had a prophetic dream, basically. So Boromir went to Rivendell looking for answers to it. Legolas had come to Rivendell to tell Elrond that Gollum had escaped. Do you know what I was saying last week? He climbed up the tree. So Legolas was sent by his father Thranduil to tell Rivendell and Elrond. Gloin and Gimli were there to tell Elrond that Sauron had been trying to make friends with the dwarves. And then the only ones who were
getting cozy.
Yeah, exactly. So he'd approached them like 2 or 3 times, like an emissary from Sauron, like offering them riches and all that. So that's what Gimli and Gloin were there for, or Glowin. I'm never sure how to pronounce Gimli's dad's name. So it's either Gloin or Glowin, but yeah, it's just they happened to be there. It was only really like Frodo, Merry, Pippin, Sam, and Gandalf who were there on ring business. I mean, that's when the council was called. It was just the people who happened to be there. But in the films, it's like they were all summoned there. But Denethor makes it clear he wants the ring for Gondor. I've got that he's infuriating as a character. And even more so in the film. So just shout out to John Noble. I know you're listening. And I've got here, and I'm sick of this, it's really showing my generation that I keep making Harry Potter references. But Denethor is the Umbridge of Lord of the Rings for me. He's just such a twat. He's the Umbridge. Except Denethor, I can understand he's slightly redeemable, but fuck you, Umbridge.
As he raises the middle finger into the air.
I don't know why I do that. But then we go back to Faramir. He threatens to kill Smeagol. at the reflection pool thing until Frodo stops him. And he brings Smeagol towards the Rangers. And his fishing song is great while he's doing it. He's like, catch a fish so juicy sweet. And it's like smacking it, which is awesome. But the way Smeagol looked at Frodo when he's telling him to come to him, it just reminds me of so much like when our kid's just got a nappy on. And you're telling her to like, oh, come on, well, come here and I'll get you ready. And she just gives you the same look that like Smeagol's given to Frodo. It's just like...
Yeah, I saw her in that shot. Definitely.
It's not to say our kid looks like Smeagol, but like it's just the mannerisms.
She looks more like a hobbit.
Yeah.
Which is what I said like later on. She's got hobbit hair right now.
Yeah, little curly hair. I couldn't remember this next scene, right? But Smeagol gets the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah, which
like, I
is
couldn't
unnecessary.
Remember that. Yeah, I could not remember that at all. It was crazy, but
because they didn't do that to Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, but they're trying to interrogate him to see where he's trying to lead them. And we see that in a dark room, Sam's trying to convince Frodo to slip a finger into his ring and that everything will be okay. But Frodo resists because he knows that if he does put his finger in his ring, Sauron will see him.
Sauron's got a little peephole in the wall.
He'll see him. He'll see him.
You don't want Sauron to catch your finger in your ring, really.
Exactly. Dire consequences. Dire. But yeah, Sam tells Faramir that they're trying to destroy the ring, and while he doesn't... There's many chances for Faramir to take the ring in the films, and he doesn't, which ultimately shows he's good. But again, it's a narrative device here, because in the books, Faramir captures them, he interrogates them, finds out what they're doing, what they've got. He realises how dangerous the ring is, and he's like, yeah, fair do, see you later. He lets them go straight away. They don't go to Osgiliath.
He's very Boromir.
Faramir's a fucking hero. Absolute hero. But Faramir and Boromir are heroes of men. That's why that they're of the ancient blood as well. Like, they're in the same vein as Aragorn almost. Like, not a direct heir of Isildur, but
he doesn't even try either.
They're fucking noble people. No, Faramir doesn't. Faramir is noble as shit. Like, but again, for narrative reasons, we'll see them go to Osgiliath before they're released. But they are going to Osgiliath in the films because it's under attack. Aragorn is alive. Brago, the horse named after the second king of Rohan. I also want to point out as well, from last week, I said there was 9 kings of Rohan. There wasn't. There's about 18 by the end of the films. The 9th is up to Helm Hammerhand. So it starts with Eol and then ends with Helm Hammerhand, and then the second line of king starts.
Okay.
Which ends with Eomer. Spoilers. Aragorn is alive, and he makes it on Brago to Helm's Deep ahead of the Uruk-hai army, which he sees coming, and he reunites with Gimli, Legolas, and everyone. Got that beautiful scene. I don't know if you appreciate this as much as I did, but when Aragorn opens the doors into the hall, and he's just got his head down, and like the light from behind him.
That was so just cringe. Wasn't necessary. It was one of those moments that they want all women to just wet their pants.
Not just women. Not just women.
They don't realise though that doesn't appeal to women.
Some of the speeches...
It's to you guys, like, it really is.
There is a speech in Return of the King that Aragorn makes about the courage of men. And I used to have a manager when I worked in a call centre who, when I was getting really stressed and hating my job, he would rally me with that speech.
Did he do it just because he knew you liked it, or was that like just him? Like he was a big nerd and he did it?
I think it was a bit of both. He knew I'd appreciate it. It's non-toxic masculinity. It's just like amazingly like strong men who are leaders, who aren't like wankers or anything. It's just fantastic. But Theoden mobilises the army because Aragorn says 10,000 Uruk-hai will be here by nightfall, and unfortunately they don't have enough soldiers. It's going to be about 300 against 10,000, and they mobilise the very young and the very old, where, you know, Aragorn, Gimli and Legolas are talking. They say some have seen too many winters or too few, which is, it's unfortunate, but you see like the slow shots of men and boys, old men and young boys being taken away from the families and handed weapons and given like oversized or helmets and stuff like that, which is, it's heartbreaking, but at the end of the day, like, you're on the line fighting for your life. Theoden mentions that no army has breached the wall or set foot in the Hornburg, which is true. So Helm's Deep it's not the Hornburg as the actual building. Helm's Deep is like pretty much the valley it's protecting. It's named after Helm Hammerhand, who I've already kind of explained. What's not in the film is a big defence that's kind of overlooked, and it's called Helm's Dyke. And there is a road down from the Hornburg, about a quarter of a mile, and then you've got a big wall with a massive ditch on the other side, and that's Helm's Dyke. And that is overlooked in the films.
It's like a moat.
Yeah, but it's a really good like defensive structure, but that gets overrun, so it's not included in the films. But I just thought I'd point out that it's there. There's a whole entry in it on the Tolkien, like the Middle Earth Atlas that I've got. It's really good. Aragorn saying you need to send out calls for aid, and Theoden rightly points out that the old alliances are dead. Like you said, where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? Which is a bit of a meme as well. They haven't been Gondor haven't been great allies to Rohan. Again, it's a world in decline, so when the people of Rohan were invited to settle the Calenardon, which is the land that they're in, by the Gondorians, they made an oath of allegiance to each other to be friends, and that's not really being honoured, because again, it's a world in decline. Denethor's a bit of a bastard, and evil's on the rise. It's not really good. It's looking dire. And the next bit is the Entmoot, which you made a great observation about what they looked like when all the trees were coming together. Would you care to tell everyone?
I can't even remember what I said.
Where all the scarecrow, it looked like scarecrows.
Oh, yeah. So it reminded me of the Scarecrow wedding and the Scarecrow ball in Wurzel Gummidge, where all the scarecrows are like creeping and like cracking in that across the fields and climbing over stiles to gather.
Oh, goodness me. But
same motion.
Same, yeah. Yeah, so we see with an Entmoot that things don't happen quickly at all. Merry and Pippin are getting very impatient.
Which is understandable, because if they've been alive for so long, time, it's not, it's like, it's relative.
Yeah, but yeah, then we switch back to Helm's Deep, where the women, children and disabled are sent to the glittering caves behind the fortress. And Éowyn wants to say, like, it really does kind of suck for her that she's sidelined when she wants to be a shield maiden of Rohan. Like, that's what she wants to be. She wants to fight. And she doesn't get...
So is that a common role within the history of Rohan? There's been women who've fought.
Fuck me, you're really testing me now. I'm not sure. I'm going to straight up say... But the fact that they have a word for it, a shield maiden...
Yeah, that's what
makes me think maybe...
prompted the question.
Yeah, I think Rohan have, like, Germanic origins, like, within our world, because, like, they've got their own language and that. So I don't know, but I mean, she wants to fight, but we don't see women in the Rohirrim army as women. There are women in the Rohirrim army, but they're the extras who had the horses in New Zealand, because not enough men owned horses. Yeah. So it was women who turned up. So, like, there's some Rohirrim where you'll see that, like, the beards are, like, slipped off and stuff like that, because that, they're the ones who owned and rode horses, who turned up to the casting call. Éowyn doesn't really get her way until she becomes Dernhelm. But I don't even think she's called Dernhelm in the films. It's just her dressed up as a bloke, which, fair dues. Morale isn't great at Helm's Deep. And then Aragorn and Legolas are talking in Elvish. And Legolas is saying, like, abandon all hope and stuff. And Aragorn's like, no, we're going to stay and fight. And then imagine just hearing this in a language you don't understand. And then Legolas says, they will die. And Aragorn, in, like, common, just says, I'll die as one of them. Imagine just being a fucking soldier, just going about, like, a scared young boy.
It's not very motivational.
No, hearing a language you don't understand. And all of a sudden, Aragorn just saying, I'll die with them. I'd shit myself. Like, even more so. Theoden's getting armoured up. Looks cool. His armour's mint, but again, it's plate. But he's talking about the futility of their cause, which is, it's not nice, but you can see that Theoden is in dire straits. Like, he's meant to protect these people and look at all this corruption that's happened and this evil that's in the land. But we get back to the Entmoot where they finally, at night, get done saying good morning. And that's pretty much the whole point of that scene, isn't it? It's just, we've finished saying good morning. Mary's like, oh, what the fuck, man? And then back to Helm's Deep. This is why I don't like making these notes, is as I go, because like we're describing the scenes in order of as they happen. Like, maybe we should have just stuck with a narrative structure of like, follow the Helm's Deep scenes, then go back and follow the Frodo scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in the story that happen all at the same time.
I was tempted to write my notes like the Lord of the Rings video games, where you just choose a path of like which characters you want to play as, and you go as far as you can.
Yeah.
And then you go back and play as the others. Aragorn tries to improve morale with Haleth, son of Hammer, by Joy saying like, "Give me your sword," and he says, "Oh, this is a great sword."
Yeah.
It's not. It's not a great sword.
Well, yeah, he's trying to pep them up.
Yeah, he is, but like it's not good. It's not good. But we do have a bit of a good scene with Gimli where he puts the chainmail on, it just falls to the floor because it's so long. But then we have a bit of this has got to be a big morale boost when Haldir and the elves turn up. Again, didn't happen in the books. It was just humans. It was just humans at Helm's Deep. But again, it's a shorthand way for Peter Jackson to say that these threats are against all of Middle-earth, not just men.
Yeah. So
the Uruk-hai threatens everyone. It's not just... and that's why he says, like, the old alliances are no longer dead. But then we get, arguably, the coolest scene in the film. Like, the coolest bit of the film with the battle at Helm's Deep. Where it starts off with Gimli trying to see over the wall.
Like, why did they even put him there? He cannot see now. He cannot really do anything.
That's what he was saying, wasn't he? He was like, why am I here? But what gets me every time is, did you feel how tense the atmosphere was? Because like, they're just manning the walls as the army approaches them.
It was the quiet before the storm.
Can
imagine the deafening sort of silence. I also like the element of the weather because it was quite ominous, but also the fact that majority of war scenes that are portrayed in films are usually just like a field and the weather's normal. It might be grey, but it made it more realistic in terms of like, I always think that Lord of the Rings is like medieval due to like their costume, things like that. So yeah, sometimes when you went into battle there would be massive raging storms.
Oh yeah,
there's a possibility. So yeah.
But yeah, so just as it's about to start, Theoden has his line. So some people use, when Theoden says, "So it begins."
Yeah.
Some people, some nerds, use this to ring in the new year by saying, "So it begins." But don't get that look on your face, because either last year or the year before, we did the same thing with Peep Show. Do you remember when we did the Peep Show episode of New Year, and we timed it exactly so that it was New Year's on the episode?
But, I know exactly the type of people. It's the type of people...
It's fucking us, so be careful what you say.
Use retractable pencils. There's a certain type of person.
You are like an old school bully. It's so weird. Sometimes you're so sensitive, and then other times you're like Buzz from Home Alone.
I just... Maybe it's just
you like
multiple personalities.
Yeah, sometimes you're Marty McFly, and sometimes you're Biff.
From
hello.
Biff, Chip and Kipper?
No, from Back to the Future. Hello, McFly. But yeah. Like, I'm not going to criticise anybody for that because we've done it with Peep Show. Like,
it's not the same.
It is the same.
It's not. There's not like atlases of Peep Show.
I wish there was. I wish. And I've got that atlas. So what are you saying?
You are one of them. That's why you're defending your own kind.
You're recording this with me. You're married to me. Yeah. You have a child with me.
Yeah, but I'm not you.
You've been infected. But we see the Uruk-hai getting riled up doing their like hacker. But what I didn't appreciate, and this made me really sad, is the women and kids in the cave can hear this.
Yeah,
that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, because they have no concept of how many people, like, that is purely left to the imagination for the women especially.
Yeah.
Like, women, like, I could imagine trying to convince my child that, like, you know, as parents do, of like, oh, you know, it's just thunder and lightning. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You know, you try and convince them of what things it could possibly be, but you wouldn't know yourself.
No, it's horrible. Like just watching them cower in fear. But there's one archer who he's too old. Like it's just he can't. Like me and you have done archery a few times. You know when the string gets taut, it's hard to hold. Like for an extended period of time, your arm's going to cramp up.
I thought he was great.
Well, yeah, there's that one guy who
they were pissing about.
Can't hold his. Well, I know, but like
I was ready for that.
Yeah, but like I said, like the orders were to hold, and he couldn't do it. Like,
I was ready for battle. Thanks, mate.
Sure you were. But we see some great archer shots where Legolas is telling him to get under the arm.
Yeah,
or at
nice.
the neck joint.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, which is
shows
pretty cool.
His finesse and his how.
So you had a comment about the arrows as well, didn't you?
Yes, the lack of arrows, and what did they do once they've run out of arrows, which she answered.
Well, I'd say switch to melee, yeah, but like.
But they shot a lot of arrows that didn't seem to exist within their quivers. Are they called?
Yeah, it's a quiver, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Do I shock you sometimes?
What, that you know what a quiver is?
Yeah.
No.
Were you impressed?
No, if you want to impress me, get a job. Try hard.
So rude.
Try hard. What do you want? A participation medal? Try harder. But yeah, like I think the argument could be made though that every shot from an elf pretty much is a kill shot, except when Legolas can't put that one down with a fucking torch, who's running towards the wall. But
like he is so calculated and so precise.
Yeah.
To have given that advice and then not be able to.
But it's one of those things that you've done it now because I'll never be able to unsee that it doesn't look like they have enough arrows.
Yeah.
Like, now that you've said it, I'm going to be forever watching it thinking, why haven't you got more arrows? But we see that the men also have arrows because they do a volley. And you see that one guy with one eye who's like, volley! When the order's given. So, fun fact about him, apparently, that extra didn't want to show his eye socket and he turned up the set with an eye patch on. But Peter Jackson said it looked better without it and convinced him because he was quite self-conscious. But apparently that guy said that because of that, afterwards, he became much more comfortable with his body. Like showing his eye socket, which is pretty cool, right? That's nice. That's a lovely
Peter
story.
Jackson did some good.
That's a pretty nice story, isn't it? Like, but then we see the siege ladders going up, and anybody who's played the Two Towers game is probably just as triggered as I was, because there's a level where you've just got to kick those things down. And as a kid, I didn't understand what was doing. I was just trying to fight the enemies. So I didn't understand it.
Didn't know what the concept was.
And I was stuck in it for weeks. And it just, because this was like before the internet was big. So if I wanted the answer to something, I had to buy like, I had to get the guidebook or like the walkthrough guide. And
I just don't think games should be like this. But this is not a time to talk about that. You shouldn't have to Google any information in order to play a game.
I couldn't.
The Winnie the Pooh game, right? Well, it's called the Piglet movie, I think. That was for like 3+. And I kid you not, I was about 10 when I got given that game to play. And none of us knew how to get past the first level.
There was a game.
Games shouldn't be that hard that you need to cheat to find out how to play it.
Games that used to be made of something else, like, because there was a Oddworld Abe's Odyssey. There was a game for PlayStation 1. And I could never get past the first level because but I was little, I had no fucking clue what to do. None. But like, that's just, I think kids today would call it a skill issue. It's just a skill issue. But again, there's so the siege ladders go up. There's a Wilhelm scream, which is quite a famous movie scream. Now, do you know what that is? Yeah, like it's like that well-known scream. But there's that.
I really didn't know that was the one. I just made it up.
No, it's like well, it's a scream. It's a Wilhelm scream. But it's in loads of films. And it's in here from an elf falling off the wall. We see that Legolas and Gimli are having their fighting competition. He's like, "That's 2." And it's like, "I'm already on 17."
Yeah, well, not about that, but about the ladders part. Before, I was confused why they didn't just team up and pull the metal bits from off the wall and push them off. Like, I don't understand why that wasn't a tactic.
It might have been. It's just
well, no one got the memo.
It's 300 people against 10,000. Like
no one got the memo. Clearly,
well, more with the elves, so maybe 400 against 10,000 possibly. But we have a quick break in the action. Peter Jackson obviously didn't want to spaff on our loads and wanted to calm things down a bit.
It was emotional.
We see that the Ents have finally agreed that Merry and Merry and Pippin are not orcs, which is good. They're very hasty little fellas. And again, this is what I mean. Like a scene that I love the extended edition, but if I've got a hard on for Helm's Deep, I don't need to see Fangorn Forest while I'm. I'm about to blow my load. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see fucking fighting.
Peter Jackson's just edging you.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Yeah, blue balls. But the Uruk-hai try the ramp with a phalanx formation, which then you see that, like you were saying, they're so indispensable. Because you've got the
battering rams.
They're coming up with a ram, yeah.
Yeah, and rushing through and knocking the outer...
Yeah, they're knocking people off the ramp, yeah. They're knocking Uruk-hai off the ramp. But we see that an Uruk-hai berserker blows up the wall. And this is the first time in the history of the Hornburg that the deeping wall has been breached. That's the first time an enemy set foot inside that, which is interesting. But there's a video I'll show you when we stop recording of it's that scene of the berserker running down, but it's playing Chariots of Fire instead. It's great. And there's another one I'll show you of when Gimli blows the horn, but it's Kenny G.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. We then have some wicked hero moments. Now, I don't know what it was, but I was in year 5, I think. I was in year 5 when this film came out, right? And it felt like everybody on the playground was trying to do this scene where Legolas... Legolas, Gimli and Aragorn are trying to hold the breach in the wall. And Legolas has his moment where he's coming down the stairs on his shield, shooting the arrows. Just looks fucking mint. And I'm sure, like, everybody on the playground was trying that when I was a kid. Like,
well, I said, like... That. Katy Perry's pants are wet.
Yeah.
Watching this scene.
Is that who she's married to now?
Orlando Bloom, yes.
They're still married.
And they've got a child. Yeah.
Right, okay. Again, like, we have that mint moment. Gimli's nearly drowning in the puddle, but he's just hitting people in the dick with his axe. We break in the action to see Merry appeals to the Ents because they decide that the Ents won't go to war. It's not our war. And Merry appeals, but they're refused. And Treebeard says, I'll take you to the western edge of the forest. But then a retreat is called at Helm's Deep, and while that retreat's being called, Haldir is killed, unfortunately.
No!
I know, he's a great lad. But then...
Aragorn cushions his fall.
Well, one of the favourite bits is Theoden. They need to defend the ramp and give Theoden in that as long as the time as they can. So Aragorn and Gimli sneak around...
I think this is my favourite part of the whole film.
It's great, where Gimli gets tossed.
Oh, he'll never look back.
That's character growth. That's real character growth.
Once you've been tossed, you'll never go back, Gimli.
I love that where he's like, don't tell the elf. Yeah, you were right when you were saying this. You said, they'd only have to fight like 5 at a time.
Yeah,
and they would, yeah. It's a bottleneck.
At first, it would seem daunting, but actually...
It's like It's like the Persians and the Greeks at the Battle of Thermopylae.
Yeah.
Where they hold them at the mountain pass. You see that Legolas, while they're doing this, is trying to defend the wall from more siege towers which are being shot up with like ropes.
Yeah.
And then he uses that rope to rescue Aragorn and Gimli, as Theoden is now going to prepare for a heroic last stand as the castle itself is breached.
And once again, in reference to like the ladders... The ropes, you see one rope be cut. Why don't they do it with the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things.
I suppose the whole film would be ruined, wouldn't it? Because
I think it's to show how dire the situation is, like that they are getting overrun, and
I suppose I've never been in battle, so
yeah. Well, we get to the Theoden's going to prepare for a heroic last stand as the castle's breached, but. We then see that Pippin, no longer the div, has a stroke of genius because he gets Treebeard to take them south, which Treebeard comments that south always feels like going downhill, which I always it sticks with me. It's a funny little thing. Like I don't know. I
wonder whether he gets faster when he goes down.
I don't know.
Down south, because that's what happens to the child when she's going downhill.
She can't control her little legs. Bless her. But Pippin wants to because south is where Isengard is, and he shows Treebeard.
He's taking the hobbits to Isengard.
He's going to show the Ents what Saruman's done to Fangorn. And I've got that Pippin not a div in this instance.
He is. He'll never redeem himself.
Well, we then see Frodo again for what feels like a couple of seconds, because Osgiliath's burning, and then back to the much better scene of Treebeard seeing what's happened to the south of the forest, and he puts out that call of pure rage. And me and you were talking about this earlier, because like the trees are roused to anger, like they are roused now. So they said, we're not going to war, it's not our war. But then, like Treebeard says, I knew some of these trees. They were good trees. They were friends. And he puts out
they could talk.
Yeah, he puts out he does his war call. So the Huorns are going to Helm's Deep, and the Ents are going to war in Isengard, which is some of my favourite parts of the film, because it is terrifying that when Ents are roused to anger, like what they're capable of.
It's because they're a natural. It's almost like they take on the power of nature in our world, like the force of wind, fire, water. Like it's the same. Like they are natural. They're made of natural things, and they have the power that nature has, and that's reflected in when they break the dam.
Yeah. So what's also in the books is that like when Ents grip something, it's like their fingers are like roots, and they can find grasp at anything pretty much and pull it. So like I'll come on to it in a bit, but I've got notes about like trolls pale imitations of Ents. Because you see that Ents really are a force of nature when they're roused to anger.
Well, they start pulling out the bottom of the
Saruman's
power.
They flood it. Yeah, we'll see what. The defense of Osgiliath is joined, and the hobbits are led through the turmoil. The Eye of Sauron's on Gondor, as Galadriel mentioned in the midpoint reload. And the hobbits are led through all of this. Sam informs Faramir, because Faramir says, take him to my father, that we've got a mighty gift and what have you. And Sam informs Faramir that Boromir died because he tried to take the ring from Frodo after it seduced him. They have that like a little emotional moment, which is awesome. Sean Astin is unreal, man. He's so good. But I don't know if you spotted this. Do you know when we go back over at Helm's Deep, did you see that the Uruk-hai have started to raise their own flags? So they started to raise the White Hand of Saruman flags over the battlements of Helm's Deep.
Didn't notice it.
Well, the sun's coming up because dawn's approaching. Everything's lost. Theoden is forlorn, and he says a very memorable line of, what can men do against such reckless hate?
I like that. That was a good phrase.
It's used a lot, and it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's true even for today.
It is true for today. Yeah, we live in an era of Nicola Sturgeon's just resigned this week, and she said it in a very political way about but she's saying that it's getting more brutal to be a politician, and all sides of a compass, fucking authoritarian, libertarian, left, right, whatever. It's it's becoming more and more extreme, isn't it? It is reckless hate on every side.
Yeah.
Me and my mate Sandy, we talk about this quite a lot, because we have very different outlooks and leanings on opinions and that. But we both agree that there is something that wants us to hate each other. There are people who benefit from that, and yeah, reckless hate is a very good phrase. But Aragorn convinces Theoden to ride out for one last charge, and he looks through the window, and you hear Gandalf's words again. Look to me in the east at the dawn on the 5th day.
Yeah.
So Aragorn knows that we've got a few more minutes. Don't doubt Gandalf. And then Gimli does his part, and he blows the horn of Helm Hammerhand. So this was the horn that Helm Hammerhand would blow, and then go out into the enemy camps,
everyone,
and kill people in the camps. And
I want to be Gimli.
Yeah, Gimli.
Because he gets the easy bit at that point. I mean, he's worked really hard, and then he gets the chance to just have a little chill. That's what I'm saying. He works really hard, and now is his chance to have a good toot on the horn.
But their charge is magnificent, and it's again, it's this masculinity of non-toxic masculinity, just noble, honourable people, and that charge of Theoden and Aragorn, their last stand. that it makes me want to have a cause to fight for. Like, it's that powerful. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's... I was saying, you know, funnily enough, I was saying to Sandy the other day that, like, we have all these things like identity politics and, like, inclusion and diversity and, like, all these things that people misinterpret or, like, use to further hatred because we don't have, like, a unifying thing to, you know, like, if we had a war that we were all involved in, like, we wouldn't have time for all these petty divisions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sad state of affairs when I'm wishing for a cause to unite everyone, which is like fucking aliens or something.
Well, I mean, Ukraine really are at the forefront. Like, everyone's united.
It's kind of the closest. Yeah, it's just and it's the closest thing we'd come to it, I think.
And within my work, I was exposed to a video of children from a high school that have come to our country because of the war in Ukraine. And the things they were talking about. And they were saying, like, we're thankful that you've given us something to smile about and take our minds off it, even though it's always there and we don't know whether we'll ever be able to go back home. And you just think, yeah, like, it's just, everything else is irrelevant, like, all these stupid things.
Yeah, it's in the face of... It's like, you're a worrier. So, like, when we, like, in lieu of big things or big problems to worry about, like, you tend to focus on smaller issues and kind of, like, they get blown out of proportion sometimes. And I've said to you many times, like, isn't it good that you don't have, like, real problems to worry about? Like, in jest a lot, but, like, you know, I was saying, like, especially when we first got together, where, like, we'd come from quite different worlds. Obviously, we've built a home and a life together now. But, like, you'd freak out about, like, not having X amount of thousands in savings or something, and I'd be like, it'd be nice if you had proper problems to worry about.
Yeah, I feel like that's good balance, though.
It's interesting.
A world full of people like you,
fucking awesome.
No, it wouldn't. Nothing would get done.
Yes, it would. No, it wouldn't.
It would all be parties, chilling. Like,
actually,
no one would
things would get done.
No,
things. I am a get donerer.
Yeah, and I am.
What I'm not is I'm not a tiny minutiae detail. I'm a big picture guy.
Yeah, but you're also the type of person that makes, like, stupid mistakes because you bool into everything.
I don't...
And you just have to deal with it instead of making the forethought. Like, I think in this situation, you are, like, the Urukai or whatever they're called.
All right.
Just booling. You're like, whoa! Running in. And I am, is it something? Theoden. I am the person that's like, the important thing is that our people stay alive. And then Aragorn's the middle ground, isn't he? Because Aragorn's like the person that's like, but surely, like, if there's no one left to look back and be like, oh, the courage these people had to stand up, but there's no one there to actually remember that, then what's the point in all this? There's no legacy, there's nothing left.
In the interest of our marriage and our continued goodwill, I will say I am a big picture person and I am decisive. I will get big things done.
You're the Urukai.
Wait, I will get big things done and I will get them done, but I benefit greatly from having someone like you around, and it does work very well in our life, who can think about the detail, and those two work very well together.
Yeah.
You cheeky fuck. But anyway, their charge out is amazing, and it's just in time because Gandalf brings Éomer and the other Rohirrim to the battle. And as they charge down the slope,
the big beam of light that Gandalf brings,
the sun blinds the Urukai. Now, there is a great post on Reddit that I will find. It basically makes the case that Gandalf is not a wizard. Gandalf is a fighter, like a D&D class fighter who puts some points into magic. And it really outlines everything, and I'll go through it in a minute.
But the sun blinds
the Urukai, and it allows the Rohirrim. So I don't know if you noticed this, but because it blinds the Rohirrim, they've got the pikes out, the Uruk-hai. The sun blinds the Uruk-hai, allowing the Rohirrim to jump the pikes. Because otherwise, did you see they were ready with the anti-cavalry pikes, like ready to stab them? But because of that, they can jump over, and that's what the sun does. And then we switch back, though that's amazing, right? But then we switch to the destruction of Isengard, and that is hardcore, right? That really does show. So
how weak Saruman is because he is broken that quickly.
No, it's more like how powerful the Ents are, because something I want to bring up with you now is that it shows that the trolls are a pale imitation of Ents, and the purer children of Iluvatar are much stronger. But I want to call back to something you said a few weeks ago where I disagreed with you. But I think I might have actually come round to your way of thinking. So, do you remember a few weeks ago when you said that orcs are really weak?
Yeah. And you said...
And I said, like, yeah, but that's because they're being killed by heroes, but one-on-one, they're very fucking scary, to a normal human. I'm kind of swaying the other way now, because you point out that, like, orcs have, orcs get slayed, like, easily. And I'm wondering now, like, seeing Ents versus trolls, is that because, do you know, like, with Plato's allegory, like, with the cave, by Plato, like, a copy of a copy, is that because evil can't create purely...
It's a copy, so it's not
inherently,
powerful.
It's not as good, yeah. So I'm wondering if that's because that's the same thing with evil here, is that because it's an imitation, it's not as good. But we see that the dam holding back the river Eisen is broken by the Ents, and the forges and all that are drowned. She's completely drowned. They let the river run into the Ring of Orthanc, which is amazing. But again, we go back to Frodo and Sam, where the ring's nearly snatched by the Nazgul. Again, none of this happened in the books. But Faramir eventually sees sense and resists the temptation of the ring, even though his guard points out that his life would be forfeit.
Yeah.
But they let go and they set off towards Cirith Ungol. Gollum's back and plans to lead them into death, take the ring from them. Now, there's a line where Sam mentions that they shouldn't even be there, like in Osgiliath. And I'm kind of in two minds about whether that's like just a cute, like, throwaway line, or whether that's like an intentional, like, funny nod to the fact that in the books they're not there at all.
Right.
So like, it's we shouldn't be here at all. Is like Peter Jackson just like wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty good. But then what we see, this film feels like it has like 1,200 endings, right? Like every scene, because it's been a while since I watched it, but every scene I was like, all right, the film's ending. All right, the film's ending. All right, the film's ending. It just didn't. As we see, like, Isengard flooded, Rohan victorious, and Saruman trapped, Sam narrates a hopeful future by saying that, like, all the people from the old stories had plenty of chances to turn back, and they didn't. And that's what made them victorious, is that they kept hopeful and kept going. Which is just... I've got one note here that just says, God bless you, Sam Gamgee. But back at Helm's Deep, we see the Uruk-hai flee from the Rohirrim, but they flee into some trees that weren't there before. These have mysteriously turned up. And I mentioned to you that not a single one of these Uruk-hai escapes from the Huorns. And the next day, there is a hill in the valley that was never there before, and that from then is called the Death Mound or the Death Down, which is allegedly where all the bodies are, which mint. And then we have a great scene of Gimli and Legolas when they settle their kill count, where Legolas is at 42 and Gimli's like, great, except I'm on 43. And then Legolas shoots the body and Gimli sat on it. He's like, he was twitching.
He was dead already. It was because of my axe in his nervous system.
I've got my axe embedded in his nervous system. And then he moves the haft and the body just twitches.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Saruman and Grima Wormtongue are looking pretty alarmed, obviously. I mean, shit's gone south for them. But we see Merry and Pippin comparing height before they find some good fucking food and pipeweed. Now, pipeweed, what are your impressions from pipeweed?
So it's going to be cannabis-like substance.
Yeah, is that what you think?
I think so.
I'm inclined to agree, because there's things like where Saruman's saying, like, Radagast's love of pipeweed has rotten his mind and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually, it's pretty much confirmed to be just tobacco, but I don't know why they're all so into it. Like, I can't see J.R.R. Tolkien writing about marijuana as like a staunch Catholic Oxford lad.
You never know.
You don't, yeah.
And you say that about Catholics, but come on, Christopher.
Yeah, there is an uncertain.
They have got confession. Confession exists.
That's true. But finally, the final scene of Frodo, Sam and Smeagol is Gollum, once they've set off for Cirith Ungol, Gollum convincing Smeagol to come on side with what I said, that like they'll lead him into Cirith Ungol and then take the ring from the body once they're killed. And that's where the film ends, but just before that, Sam and Frodo are talking about if there'll ever be stories one day. And that's amazing. Samwise the Brave. Yes. Frodo here knows damn well that Samwise the Brave is the real hero of the piece. And I think it's like a final shot of up the mountains and then into Mordor, like, because they're going around the edge of Mordor now. Yeah. And that's where part 2 ends. What were your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, best one yet. Just because it had more action in it. It seemed like there was the better characters had the spotlight, which I like, because, I mean, Sam is lovely. Frodo, I think, is completely boring. And, yeah, I think just the background story of Aragorn and his sort of journey at that point. And just find out more about the Rohan people.
Oh, I loved it. Would you very quickly like to hear an argument from someone who posted on a D&D forum about why Gandalf is really a fighter and not a wizard?
Go on, then.
So, Gandalf lied. He was no wizard. He was clearly a high-level fighter that had put points in the use magic device skill, allowing him to wield a staff of wizardry. All of his magic spells he cast were low-level, easily explained by his ring of spell storing and his staff. For such an epic-level wizard, he spent more time fighting than he did casting spells. He presented himself as this angelic demigod, when all he was a fighter with carefully crafted PR. His combat feats were apparent. He has proficiency in the longsword, but he is also a trained dual weapon fighter. To have that level of competency to wield both weapons, you are looking at a dexterity of at least 17, coupled with the monkey grip feat to be able to fight with a quarterstaff one-handed in his offhand. 3 dual weapon fighting feats, monkey grip, and a martial weapon proficiency would take up 5 of his 7 feats as a wizard. Far too many to be an effective build. That's why, when faced with a real wizard like Saruman, he got stomped in a magic duel. He had taken no feats in skills useful to a wizard. If he had used his sword, he would have carved up Saruman without effort. The spells he casts are all 2nd level or less. He casts Spook on Bilbo to snap him out of his ring fetish. When he's trapped on top of Isengard, an Annabelle Messenger spell helps him get help. Getting into Moria, he uses his staff to cast Light. Facing the Balrog, all he does is cast Mage Armor. Even in the 2 towers, his spells are limited. Instead of launching a fireball into the masked Uruk-hai, he simply takes 20 on a nature check to see when the sun will crest the hill and times his charge appropriately. Saruman braced for a magic duel over the body of Theoden, which Gandalf gets around with a simple knock on the skull. Since Saruman has got Magic Jar cast on Theoden, the wizard takes that full blow as well as breaking his concentration. Gandalf stops the hunter's assault on him by parrying 2 missile weapons, another fighter feat, and then casting another 1st level spell in Heat Metal. Return of the King has Gandalf using Light against the Nazgul, and that is about it. When the Trolls, Orcs and Easterlings breach the gates of Minas Tirith, does he unleash a devastating barrage of spells at a tightly packed foe? No. He charges a troll and kills it with his sword. That is the action of a fighter, not a wizard. Look at how he handled the Balrog, not with sorcery but with skill. The Balrog approached and Gandalf attempts to intimidate him, clearly a fighter skill. After he uses his staff to cast armour, 1st level spell, Gandalf then makes an engineering check, another fighter skill, to see that the bridge will not support the Balrog's weight. When the Balrog took a step, the bridge collapsed under its weight, and Gandalf was smart enough to know the breakpoint and positioned himself just far enough back not to go down with the Balrog. The Balrog's whip got lucky with a critical hit, knocking Gandalf off balance. The whole falling part was due to a lack of oversight on behalf of the party. Seriously, how does a ranger forget to bring rope? Gandalf wasn't saved by divine divorces after he hit the bottom. He merely soaked up the damage because he was sitting on 20 d10 plus constitution bonus worth of hit points. So why the subterfuge? Because it was the perfect way to lure in his enemies. Everyone knows in a fight to rush the wizard before he can do too much damage. But if the wizard is actually an epic level fighter, the fools rush to their doom. Gandalf, while not being a wizard, is extremely intelligent. He knows how his foes would respond. Nobody wants to face a heavily armoured dwarf. Look at Gimli's problem in finding foes to engage in the cave troll fight. But an unarmoured wizard? That's the target people seek out, before he can use his firepower on you. If the wizard turns out to be a high-level fighter wearing robes, then he's already in melee when it's his turn and can mop the floor with the morons that charge him. So remember, fighters, be like Gandalf. Fight smarter, not harder. It makes a compelling argument, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But I thought that was a nice little bonus to end on. Yeah. So any parting words from you, Becca? What are your thoughts about going into Return of the King?
Yeah, I'm excited. As always, I'll probably learn a few more names by the end of the next film. So yeah, getting nerdier by the day, it feels like. Yeah,
well, the good news is it's mainly the same characters in Return of the King. You're not really introducing loads of new people.
Yeah, but it's like the repetition of the names.
The stage is set now. And I'll probably read to you from the Silmarillion at some point as well. So
yeah,
just to send you to sleep. But yeah, that's going to be it from us for tonight. I'm going to say goodbye from me, Chris.
And goodbye from me. Have a lovely weekend.
Yes, and we'll see you on the next one.